Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa salatu wa salam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. So alhamdulillah, for the time that I've been here, we've been talking about the conversation between Luqman and his son. Has been pretty much the extent of our conversation. And so during the khutbah, we came to the point where he advised his son that if there was a mustard seed that was hidden in the depths of a rock, or in the heavens, or in the earth, that Allah would bring it forth on the Day of Judgment. And he's basically teaching his son to have muraqabah, to have an awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all times. And this is, profound advice for a man to give to his son. Because, teaching, we live in a society now where we are pretty much becoming a society of sociopaths, narcissists, where we kind of step over people to get what we want. We exploit people and use people to get what we want. And no consideration or concern, no awareness for the feelings of other people, for the needs of other people, right? When the Sahaba came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked about the rights of marriage, they would ask the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, ma haqqa zawjati ahadina alayna. O Messenger of Allah, what is the right of one of our wives over us? They weren't asking about what is my right over my wife. You see the difference between the two? They never said, what is my right over my wife? Because it wasn't about the rights that were due to them. It was the rights that they were responsible for giving someone else. And I want to make sure that I'm right with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as it relates to what I'm supposed to give to my spouse. Whereas today, when people come, brothers and sisters come to the Imam and they're asking about the rights of marriage, they're asking about their right. Oh, he's not giving me my rights. And she's not giving me my rights. And isn't this my right in Islam? Or isn't that my right in Islam? It's always about nafsi, nafsi. It's always about me, me, me. What someone else owes me. What about what you owe to someone else? It just shows you the complete difference in mentality between the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in and our mentality. Their concern was, what is the right of one of our wives over us? What do I have to give this woman if I marry her? So I need to make sure that I am capable of fulfilling this person's rights. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he said, إِنِّي لَا أَطْلُبْ مِنْ زَوْجَتِي جَمِيعَ حَقِّي مَخَافَةً أَن تَطْلُبْ مِنِّي جَمِيعَ حَقِّهَا. That I do not ask my wife for all of my rights out of fear that my wife would demand from me all of her rights. How can you demand something from someone that you are not willing to give? You guys follow me? And that is the type of mentality that we are, unfortunately with social media, with the internet, creating today. A sense of entitlement, a sense of, imposition. We impose our beliefs and, our feelings and our opinions on other people without any concern for the way that they feel. It's a sense of entitlement. Exploitation. As I was at the prison earlier today, talking with some of the brothers there, and I told them that if you are in a relationship with a woman simply because you are in prison, then you are exploiting that woman. If you have no intention of marrying that woman and being with that woman, when you come home, then you need to cut your relationship with her because you are exploiting her. You're using her. You have an emotional deficit. You have an emotional void that you are trying to fill using someone else. And it's not fair. That is exploitation. You are using someone. And as soon as you come home, you discard her because now sky is the limit as it relates to how many women you can go after and your choices. It's not right. If you are doing time, do your time by yourself. Because the only reason that the woman is engaging you is because she has a hope and a belief that when you come home, you are really going to marry her. When you come home, you are actually going to live up to the things, all the promises that you are making her. If she knew that you were going to fail her the moment you came home, do you think that she would continuously entertain you? Absolutely not. This is exploitation. And we have to stop using people. It's not right. And when you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over you, watching over every single thing that you're doing, then it makes you conscious of Allah, conscious of, and aware of your behavior and the way that you interact with the world around you. The next piece of advice that Luqman gave to his son, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, as he said to his son, Ya Bunay, listen to the conversation. Ya Bunay, in the Arabic language, Bunay means ibn, but then you add the ya to it because it's yani min hub, it's out of love. Ya Bunay, Abuya. You know, they don't say Abu or Abi, which means father or my father. They say Abuya, my beloved father. That it has an addition to it which shows love, it shows hub, a connection, so that you can see that the advice that Luqman is giving his son is not, you know, me imposing on you or me instructing you or telling you what to do. This is advice out of love. Understand the context here. This advice out of love. He said, Ya Bunay, oh my beloved son. Because before you can give a young man or any young person advice, there has to be a rapport there. There has to be a connection there. I have to feel that it's coming from a place of love in order for me to be receptive. Otherwise, you come off as a dictator. You're just imposing on me. You're just telling me what to do. You understand? But when it comes from a place of love, this is why in many instances when the Prophet ﷺ would give his companions advice, he would always lead with a muqaddimah. He would always lead with an introduction by saying, I love you. He said, Ya Mu'adh, inni uhibbuka fillah. I love you for the sake of Allah. When you do that, you've already, taksib qalbahu. You've already won his heart. You've already won the heart. And now they're receptive because they know that it's coming from a place of love. You guys understand what I'm saying? They know that it's coming from a place of love, not from a place of hurt. So sometimes when we're advising our children, you could say, or even if you're advising your wife or you're a woman advising her husband, you know I love you, right? You know I don't agree with you, right? But I still love you. But I don't think that this is a good idea. You've already led with love. Lead with love. You soften the heart and the person is more receptive. The Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Mu'adh, inni wallahi uhibbuka fillah. I swear by Allah, I swear to God, I love you for the pleasure of Allah. But do not forget to say at the end of every salah, Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Oh Allah, assist me with remembering you and being grateful to you and perfecting my worship to you. Don't forget to say that at the end of every salah. And another hadith, he told another companion, Abdullah ibn Umar, he said, Ni'ma rajul Abdullah, that Abdullah is a great boy, great man, if he would only get up at night for salah. And he said, Ya Abdullah, inni uhibbuka fillah, oh Abdullah, I love you for the sake of Allah. Lakin la takun mithlu fulan kana yaqumu al-layl thumma taraka. He said, but don't be like so-and-so who used to get up at night and pray, and you don't get up at night and pray. Don't be like him. He used to get up at night and pray, and then he stopped. But he led with, I love you. You guys follow me? So Luqman's advice to his son, Ya Bunay, oh my beloved son, he's leading with love. And if we don't leave here with anything tonight other than that, lead with love. The next time you're about to say something to your son, the next time you're about to say something to your daughter, the next time you're about to say something to your wife, the next time you're about to say something to your husband, stop for a moment and say, I love you. But I don't think that that's a good idea. Lead with love. The person is more receptive. He said, Ya Bunay, oh my son, aqim as-salah, establish the salah. وَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَانْهَى عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. Jewels of advice in one sentence, one line. He said, oh my son, establish the salah. وَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and enjoin what is good, وَانْهَى عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ, and forbid what is evil, وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ, and be patient with everything that befalls you. إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. This is from the highest levels of moral excellence. The highest levels of moral excellence. It's too much in that for us to cover tonight, I promise you. Too much in that for us to cover tonight. We're only going to cover the first part, and that is aqimus salah. Establish the salah. Why would a father advise his son to be consistent and diligent with praying? What is it about salah that a young man needs to understand? What is it about prayer that is important in the life of a young man? And this wasn't the only, man mentioned in the Quran in terms of him encouraging his children to pray. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim, he made dua for his children to be amongst those who pray. He said, رَبِّ جَعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي رَبَّنَا وَتَقَبَّلْ دُعَاء. In Surah Ibrahim, Surah number 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Ibrahim said, رَبِّ جَعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ. Oh Allah, make me from amongst those who establish the salah. وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي, and from amongst my children. And just a fa'idah, just a benefit here, he used وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي, and from my children. Why? Because we know that some of our children are not going to pray. At least some of my children. At least I can make dua for that, at very least. All of them might not be those, amongst those who establish regular prayer, but at least, oh Allah, make some of my children from amongst those who establish regular prayer. This is Ibrahim making dua for his children, his grandchildren, his progeny. And another ayah in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praised Ismail, the son of Ibrahim. And let me show you how it trickles down. So Ibrahim alayhi salam made dua that Allah make him amongst those who establish regular prayer and from amongst his children. And then we find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praising one of Ibrahim's children, Ismail, for establishing the salah and commanding his family to pray. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِسْمَعِيلَ, and mention to them, O Muhammad, from the narrative of Ismail. إِنَّهُ كَانَ صَادِقَ الْوَعْدِ وَكَانَ رَسُولًا نَبِيًّا. He was someone who was truthful in his promise. وَكَانَ رَسُولًا نَبِيًّا, and he was a prophet and a messenger. كَانَ يَأْمُرُ أَهْلَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ وَكَانَ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ مَرْضِيًّا. That he used to enjoin upon his family salah and zakat. وَكَانَ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ مَرْضِيًّا. And as a result of that, he was pleasing to his Lord. He was mardiya. He was someone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. As Allah says in Surah Al-Fajr, udkhulu jannati, that in the ayah, what is the ayah when you mention mardiya? Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya. Return back to your Lord, pleased with him, and Allah pleased with you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not wait for Yawm al-Qiyamah to call Ismail mardiya. He was mardiya in this life. In that ayah, the context is, O soul, O you tranquil soul. Ya ayyatuha an-nafsul mutma'inna. O you tranquil soul. Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya. Return back to your Lord, radiyatan, pleased with Allah, and Allah pleased with you. That's in the hereafter. But Allah called Ismail, وَكَانَ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ مَرْضِيًّا. He was pleasing. These are the only two times mardiya is mentioned in the Quran. Why was he mardiya? Because he used to enjoin salah upon his family. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that when it was the last 10 nights of Ramadan, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do what? And Ramadan is slowly approaching, and we should make dua as the Sahaba used to make us make dua 6 months before Ramadan. Allahumma ballighna Ramadan. Oh Allah, allow us to see another Ramadan. Allow us to see another Ramadan, and oh boy, how we need another Ramadan at this point. Souls are thirsty. Souls are tormented and in need of that refuge that we find in the month of Ramadan. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to, in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, what did he do? كَانَ أَيْقَظَ أَهْلَهُ. He used to get his family up for salah. وَشَدَّ مِئْزَرَهُ, and he used to tie his belt tight which some of the scholars say that is a metaphor for lessening his intake of food. And some of the scholars say that it means that he would refrain from being intimate with his wives and devote all of his time for salah. But he used to wake his family up for salah. So what is it, and as the Prophet ﷺ, he said that, the only thing that is pleasing to him from this dunya, وَجُعِلَ قُرَّةَ عَيْنِي فِي الصَّلَاةِ, the only thing that is important to him from this dunya, the only thing that his eye found pleasure in from this world is prayer. Why is it important for a young man to establish salah? Why is Luqman telling his son, "Oh my son, my beloved son, establish the salah"? And notice he didn't say prayer. What's the difference between aqimu salah, establish salah, wa salli, and pray? What's the difference between the two? Because Allah could have just said pray. He didn't say pray, he said establish the salah. What's the difference between the two? Question.
I mean, when you do salah, you do your salah 5 times a day directed towards Allah. And, usually you make dua during that salah. In comparison to prayer is like something on its own, like if you do an extra dua.
Alone
Not quite.
Alone versus with people making it firm and in the center of your life.
Making it the center of your life, being continuous with it, establishing the salah, meaning making a regular habit of the salah, praying it on time, praying it with all of the conditions, all of the arkan, the pillars, the conditions, the wajibat, and all of the details that come along with the salah. Not just praying, prostrating 4 times, because that's not even prayer. As the Prophet ﷺ, on one occasion, the guy entered the masjid, he went over, he prayed 2 raka'ah. Pay attention. He went over because many Muslims, we need to be reminded of this. Because we do this on a regular basis. We go in the masjid, we bump our heads 4 times, and we get up, make the taslim, get up, and we think, I prayed. What if you didn't pray? What if I told you, perhaps the salat that you just made didn't even count? A man walked into the masjid while the Prophet ﷺ was in the masjid. He went over to the corner, he prayed 2 raka'ah. And then he walked over to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Assalamu alaikum. The Prophet ﷺ said, Wa alaikum salam, irja' fa salli fa innaka lam tusalli. Wa alaikum salam, go back and pray again because you didn't pray. The guy just prayed 2 raka'ah. Why did the Prophet ﷺ hakama alayhi bi annahu lam yusalli? The Prophet ﷺ judged the man by saying, you did not pray. Even though he went through the physical motions of the salah. Showing you that physical motions of the salah does not justify you praying. It's not just about going through the physical motions. The man went back and prayed again, came back, he said, Assalamu alaikum. The Prophet ﷺ said, Wa alaikum salam, irja' fa salli fa innaka lam tusalli. Go back and pray again because you didn't pray. Happened a 3rd time. Until he came back the 3rd time, the Prophet ﷺ said, go back and pray. He said, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ لَا أَحْسِنْ غَيْرَهَا فَعَلِمْنِي الصَّلَاةِ. He said, I swear by the one who has sent you with the truth, O Muhammad, I do not know how to pray any better than you have seen me praying. Teach me how to pray. It wasn't the mechanical movement that he was missing. It was something internal that he was missing. And that was khushu'. There was no consciousness of Allah in his prayer. Your mind drifts. You're just going through the mechanical movement of the salah. It does not mean that you prayed. The Prophet clearly told the man 3 times, you didn't pray. And for many Muslims, that is exactly what their salah looks like every single day. Just a mechanical movement. Your heart is in a different place. Your mind is in a different place. You don't even know the basics of what you're saying. Every time you say Allahu Akbar and go from one position to the next, Allahu Akbar is a reminder to you that there is nothing that is greater than God in that moment. Yet our mind drifts and remembers things that don't need to be remembered, almost as if they are greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that moment. Constantly saying Allahu Akbar in your salah is a constant reminder to you that in that moment there is nothing greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing more important than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that moment. Nothing. But yet you have some Muslims who will pray the entire salah and your mind is not even present. Your mind is not even present. One of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, he was making salah in his garden one day. And as he's praying, his eyes became fixated on a bird that was flying in and out of the trees. And when he regained focus, he forgot which rak'ah he was in. So he took his garden, the garden that he was praying in, and he went to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, "O Messenger of Allah, I was praying, and my eyes became fixated on a bird that was flying in and out of the trees until I forgot which rak'ah I was on." He said, "Khudh sadaqah, take my entire garden as a sadaqah. Perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive me for the amount of time that I was heedless in my prayer." Wallah al-azim, I've seen people in the salah, their phone ring, they pull the phone out, they're checking the message, who's calling them at that moment, put the phone on silent, put the phone down, and return back to their salah. When he said, "Ya bunay, oh my beloved son, aqim as-salah, establish the salah, make a regular habit out of prayer." Why does a young man need to make a regular habit out of prayer? Young men need to connect to something or someone greater than themselves. As a young man, as most of us, or all of us in here, men, as young men at some point in our lives, we thought we had mastered whatever world we were in. And then each time we get knocked down, right, it is a reminder to us that you are not in control. And sometimes the frustration builds because you believe as a young man that you got it all figured out. But when you connect, as non-Muslims say, to a higher power, you connect to someone greater than yourself, as Allah says, وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ, and above everyone that is knowledgeable is one that is more knowledgeable, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You realize you don't have it figured out. And you realize that you need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. And the quickest way to connect with Allah is through takbir, Allahu Akbar, entering into your salah. Just like you can say, "Siri, call so-and-so," the quickest way to jump on the phone and connect with someone, the quickest way to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to make wudu, Allahu Akbar. Connect with your Lord. Connect with someone bigger and greater than yourself. In the hadith of Jurayj, many of you may be familiar with the hadith of Jurayj. The Prophet ﷺ said, "None spoke in the cradle except three." One of them was the child during the story of Jurayj. The Prophet ﷺ told the story of a man from Bani Israel whose name was Jurayj. This young man was making salah and his mother came and was calling him, "Ya Jurayj." And Jurayj, while he's in his prayer, he's debating whether or not he should stop praying and respond to his mother or continue praying. So he continued praying, ignoring his mother. He did this on 3 different occasions. On the 3rd occasion, his mother called him, "Ya Jurayj." And he said, "Ummi am salati." Should I respond to my mother or should I continue praying? فَاسْتَمَرَّ فِي صَلَاتِهِ. He continued in his prayer until his mother got so upset with him, so angry with him, she made dua with him. She made dua against him. She said, "Allahumma la tumithu hatta yanzur fi wujuh al-mumisat." Oh Allah, do not allow my son to die until he looks into the faces of prostitutes. Mother so upset with her son. And the scholars say that if it is a sunnah prayer that you are praying and your mother calls you, it is wajib on you to respond to your mother. Meaning responding to your mother takes precedence over supererogatory prayer. Just as a woman cannot fast a supererogatory fast without the permission of her husband. Fulfilling the right of the husband of intimacy takes precedence over supererogatory act or voluntary act of fasting. These are wajibat in our lives. So he ignored his mother and continued in his prayer. Let me show you why young men need prayer. So she said, "May Allah not cause my son to die until he looks into the faces of prostitutes." She wants him to break this rigid code or rigid connection to his prayer. Some people envy you because of your connection to your religion. Sometimes you're hanging with Muslims, right? And they might do something in front of you, hoping that you say something, hoping that you don't say anything so they can continue, because they want to break you. In some instances, a non-practicing Muslim might be worse than a non-Muslim. And that's a fact. A non-practicing Muslim might be more detrimental to your deen than a non-Muslim. Non-Muslim will tell you, hey Muhammad, isn't it time for prayer? They'll remind you it's time for salah. The Muslim work right alongside you, don't pray, hoping that you don't say anything. He knows it's time for salah, but he's hoping you don't say anything because he don't want to pray. So rather than tell you, Assalamu alaikum Sheikh, it's time for salah, I don't want to pray, but I'm letting you know that it's time for salah. Because rather than appear as a hypocrite, he'd rather you not pray at all. That's a fact. So, what happens to Jurayj? Jurayj is, Shaitan is trying to get to Jurayj, takes advantage. So, a sheep herder who's looking over the mosque, he goes and he has relations with this woman. There's a Jewish woman who says, let me go test Jurayj. Let me test his faith. Let me test his religion. She always got people who want to test you. Everything that you say that you are, there will always be somebody to test you to see if you really about that life. So when you say, I'm this, I'm that, there's always going to be somebody who's going to test you. You say, I'm religious, I fear Allah, and all of these comments that we make about ourselves and our supposed relationship with God, there's always going to be somebody who's going to test you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَنَبَلُوَ أَخْبَارَهُمْ, and we will test what you say about what is said about you or what you say about yourself. Be mindful of the things that you say about yourself and the things that you allow other people to say about you. So the woman says, give me a chance, let me go test Jurayj. So she comes to Jurayj and tries to seduce him. Jurayj refuses. So she goes and she sleeps with the shepherd, and then she gets pregnant and she delivers the child, and she says the child belongs to Jurayj. Lies on him. So they go and they destroy Jurayj's monastery, his place of worship, and as they're about to hang him up, it said, you slept with this prostitute, she had your baby, you are the father of the child. Jurayj says, before you kill me, I got one request. They said, what's your request? He said, just let me pray 2 rak'ah. Power of salah for a young man. Sometimes you don't have it all figured out, but you know who does have it figured out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-alim, al-khabir, the all aware, the all knowledgeable. I don't have all the answers, but I know who does. You understand? That is important for a young man to understand. You don't have all the answers. You don't have it all figured out. But guess what? You have a connection to someone who does. And all it requires is for you to raise your hands and say, oh Allah, give me clarity in this situation. Oh Allah, give me understanding of this situation. Ya Allah, Ya Mu'allimu Adam. Oh Allah, the one who taught Adam, teach me. Ya Mufahim Sulaiman. Oh, the one who gave Sulaiman fahm. As Allah says, وَفَهَّمْنَاهَا Sulaiman. And we conferred upon Sulaiman fahm, understanding. The one who gave Sulaiman fahm, you don't think that he can give you fahm? The one who taught Adam the names of everything, you don't think he can teach you, even in that very moment? Know your resources. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your greatest resource. As a young man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God is your greatest resource. I don't know everything, and I don't have all the answers, but I know who does. I go make wudu, pray 2 rak'ah, give it some time, and let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala work out the details for me. That is powerful for a young man to understand. So he tells them, before you kill me, I got one request. Just let me pray 2 rak'ah. They let him go, he prays 2 rak'ah, and then he walks over to the baby and he pokes the baby in the stomach and he says, who's your father? Men abuk. And the baby speaks in its infancy, Abuya Fulan. My father is so-and-so, the sheep herder. Allah figured it out for him. Allah figured it out for him. You understand? The power of 2 rak'ah. So when Luqman says to his son, Ya bunay aqim as-salah, oh my son, be regular, be consistent in your prayer, he's dropping on him a heavy jewel. It's not when we tell our children to pray, establish the salah, it's not because, this is something that is important to us. It should be important to you. Don't ever lose your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's because as boys, we are risk takers. We gamble a lot, sometimes to our own detriment. But we're risk takers. That's what makes us who we are. And in being risk takers, sometimes we put ourselves in very troublesome situations. And when we're in those troublesome situations, our way out, our makhraj, our exit from that situation is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in the Quran, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. And whoever fears Allah, Allah will make a way out of every difficulty. A makhraj will make an exit for you out of every situation. وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. And provide for him in ways in which he could never imagine. It's the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that's not going to happen if you sever your ties with him by not praying. So, young men tend to find themselves in trouble a lot because they're risk takers and they gamble a lot in addition to their impulsivity. They say that the impulsivity in boys does not begin to decrease until he's around 24 or 25 years old. Very impulsive. And that balance that we need as young men is prayer. It is the ultimate equilibrium between our impulsivities and our immaturities and, the reality in which we live. And sometimes we have to offset, that risk-taking behavior or risky behavior with prayer. Otherwise, we'll go too far. So if you think about, for example, in the story of Musa alayhi salam. Musa, as a young man, one day he comes out and he sees someone from, the Egyptians oppressing an Israelite. What does Musa do? Because even though he was raised in the house of Fir'aun, he's still identified as an Israelite. So he goes over and he challenges the Egyptian. They get into a fight. Musa hits the man, knocks him out, kills him. He didn't intend to kill him. Here again, young men finding themselves in troublesome situations. So Musa, feeling bad at what he did, he comes out the next day and sees the same guy, Samiri, fighting with another Egyptian, and then he realized at that moment that it was the troublemaker, not the Egyptian. And the lesson that we learn from that is that learn the why before you judge. Learn the other side of the story before you jump in, because the one that you jump in and help might actually be the one that is wrong, and you are now aiding someone who is committing an injustice against someone who the injustice is being done to. Dhulmun ala dhulm. Oppression on top of oppression. Simply because you didn't take the time out to find out the details of the situation. So what does he say to Musa? Are you going to kill me like you killed the guy yesterday, essentially snitching on Musa? The other Egyptians heard, oh, he's the one who killed the Egyptian the other day. They go and tell Fir'aun. Now they're looking for Musa, young man in trouble. A young man in trouble. Musa flees Egypt, runs, and he heads towards what we know today as Saudi Arabia, a place called Midian, where he arrives at that place and he sees two young women standing off to the side, and he sees a group of men giving their animals some water. So Musa, the man that he was, he goes over to the young girls. Why are you standing here? Why are you not watering your animals? They said, because we don't want to mingle with the men. Musa takes the animals, goes over, brodies his way through, gives the animals something to drink, gives the animals back to the girls. The girls walk away. Musa sits down underneath a tree and he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. Oh Allah, oh my Lord, anything that you have prepared for me right now, I'm in need of it. This is a young man in trouble. And although he didn't go through the formal motion of prayer, he made prayer, dua, connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that moment when he had nothing. He left his family. He left with nothing but the clothes on his back. No food, no shelter, no family, no nothing. And there are a lot of young men that can relate to being in that situation because we get ourselves in trouble. We can't tell our family. We can't tell mom or dad, and we're in trouble. And rather than jumping from, the fire into the frying pan, making your situation worse, sometimes the closest thing or the closest thing that you can do is turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe you can't tell your mother. Maybe you can't tell your father. Maybe you can't tell anybody else. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-Khabir, the one who is all aware, is already aware of your situation. Turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in the Quran, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى الْحَيِّ الَّذِي لَا يَمُوتُ. Put your trust in Allah, al-Hayy, the ever living, the one that will never die. Meaning don't trust man. Trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Man will fail you. So Musa turns to Allah and he says, oh my Lord, whatever you have prepared for me right now, I am in need of it, desperate need of it right now. Whatever you have written for me in your qadr, I need it right now. This is a young man troubled, in trouble, wanted for murder, a young man that, has nothing, no one to turn to except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does Allah do? Creates a situation for him. The young girl goes back and tells her father, says, hey, this guy, he helped us, he's strong, he seems like he's trustworthy. He could have just robbed us for the animals, but he didn't. Seems like he's trustworthy, strong, why don't we hire him? The father sends his daughter to go get Musa. The daughter shyly walks towards Musa, covering her face, says, my father, inna abi yad'uk, my father's calling you, my father needs to talk to you. Musa goes and talks to the father, makes a deal with the father. Father said, hey, listen, Musa said, I'll work for you for 8. He said, if you can work for me for 8, that's great. And if you can give me more, that's even better. And I'll marry my daughter to you. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not come through? Everything he was missing at the time he made the dua, Allah gave him. Gave him a family, gave him a job, gave him a wife, gave him food, gave him shelter. Everything that he was missing at the time he made that dua, Allah gave it to him. You see the power of prayer? Why it's important for young men to have a connection with Salah. So when Luqman says to his son, Ya bunay, oh my son, establish the Salah. Be regular in your prayer. There's wisdom in that. There's wisdom in that. This is not just, I don't feel like praying. Man, you need Salah. You need prayer. We all do. We all do. But older men are a little more, we're done with being risky. We're done with, most of us anyway. We're done with, risque behavior. We're done with gambling. You know what, when you get a family, you have children, you don't really take the risks that you would take when you're just a young man without, any responsibilities. Because now you have people who depend on you. So your ability, your desire to take risks lessen. They're not as great because you stand more to lose. They say that a married man with children, his lifespan, his life expectancy increases rather than a single man because he's constantly, as a single man, putting yourself in risky situations. When you're married and you have children, you settle, you now take the focus off of you, and now it becomes about looking out for those who you are responsible for. Which is why, and the wisdom in that is that the Prophet ﷺ used to encourage the young men to get married. In the hadith he said, Ya ma'ashara al-shabab, man istata'a minkum al-ba'a falyatazawwaj. Oh, you group of young men, shabab. Why would the Prophet ﷺ be encouraging young men to get married? Because as a young man getting married, it makes you responsible for somebody other than yourself. When you are young, no responsibilities, then you engage in risky behavior. But when you are married and you have a child or children on the way, look at how young men change when they get married, when they have children. Because now you become responsible for somebody other than yourself. It builds empathy. It builds responsibility. And today's time, young men don't get married. We're encouraging them to go to college and finish college and get an education before, they even consider marriage. And that's a problem. I'm not saying that, children shouldn't, finish college and all, that's great. But how long do we wait before we encourage them to get married? And they done had, relationships with this girl, girlfriends, multiple girlfriends that, while we're waiting for them to finish, while we're waiting them to finish school. How many daughters in our communities are just lingering around the community, not able to get married because the young men are not ready for marriage? That's a problem. That is a problem. You guys don't see that as problematic? That the young women in the community have to sit around and wait for the boys to finish college, finish playing video games, finish living out their dreams, finish what's on their bucket list, and then they decide at 30, 35 years old, I'm ready to get married. By that time, you know, her ability to produce and reproduce, the chances of that are becoming very slim. Because the women are sitting around waiting for the men to get ready for marriage. And if the preparation process for marriage started off a lot earlier, then maybe our men would be ready at 23, 24, 25 years old. But at 25 years old, many of our men are still, you know, functioning like 16, 17-year-olds. No responsibility, no care or concern for anybody other than themselves. Their mothers are still washing their clothes, still making their dinners. I mean, like, when do we change this narrative? But, you know, this is what I wanted to present. It's so much more about the salat that we could, you know, elaborate on. And I just hope that, you know, what was presented was pretty much understood. The importance of young men having a connection with salah. It's not just about the mechanical movement of the prayer. It's deeper than that. It's about you connecting yourself as a man to someone that is greater than yourself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all of his qualities and characteristics. He's the most knowledgeable. He is the all-aware. All of the qualities that we need to help us develop as young men, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala possesses all of them. He is our number one resource. Not your money, not your parents, not your credit card, not your job. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ar-Razaq. Allah is your provider. Your job is not your provider. Your job just provides you the means by which you can attain the sustenance that Allah has already provided for you. The job is just the means. If you got fired today, do you think that the provision that Allah has prepared for you is going to stop? It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. But many of us hate our jobs. We hate getting up, going to work every single day. But the thought of quitting would never cross our minds because I have to work. This is where I get my work from. This is my job. Where else am I going to work? What do you mean, where else are you going to work? The same one who gave you that job and provided you with that job is the same one who's going to continue to provide for you. The Prophet ﷺ said that none of you will die until all of your provision has been exhausted. Meaning every single dime, penny that is to come to you in this life, you will not die until you have gotten every single drop of it. Your provision doesn't stop. And, you know, we have to be mindful of that. Your resource is not your job. Your resource is not your knowledge, your degree. Your resource is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything else is complementary. Your degree, your smarts, your job, your parents, these are all resources. These are all complementary resources. Your number one resource is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has everything that you need. And He has given you all of these things to help facilitate your life for you. But when we take the focus off of Allah and make these things the main resources in our lives, we miss the point. You have now put God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, secondary to everything else. And this is part of our problem as a ummah. We put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala secondary. And everything else, my resources, my job, my parents, my wife, my kids, my. Right? As Allah says in the Quran, سَيَقُولُ لَكَ and the hypocrites will come to you and they will say to you, شَغَلَتْنَا أَمْوَالُنَا وَأَهْلُونَا فَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَنَا. And they will come to you and they will say, we were preoccupied with our wives and our children and our wealth. You know, seek Allah's forgiveness for us. And the only reason why you can use your wealth, getting a job, you know, your children, your family, the only reason why you can use that as an excuse for not coming to the masjid, for not establishing the salah, for not practicing Islam, is because you've separated that from your life. All of it is inclusive of your life. All of it. You say to the brother, where have you been, brother? I haven't seen you. Oh man, you know, I'm busy working. You separated work from deen. It's all part of your religion. Don't separate the two. Oh, well, I had school and I had, I got to work and I got this and I got that. All of that is part of your religion. Don't separate that. It's all complementary. You're going to school for what? So you can become smarter so you don't have to practice Islam? Because that's what was happening to many of our youth. They go to university, they get a degree, and somehow they become smarter than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Smarter than Islam. Above the system of Islam. I don't, philosophizing everything. Everything is, they have an excuse. Everything is a theory, and, you have an excuse for every single thing. That's not what you were going to school for. The knowledge that you are learning in college is complementary to what you know about Islam. It's supposed to help you become a better Muslim. Not continuously distance yourself from Islam. Am I making sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. I think I beat up on you guys a lot. It's out of love though. It's not just you. We're recording this so the rest of the ummah can hear it, inshallah ta'ala. But it's just out of love. Sometimes we need to hold the mirror up to ourselves and take a real good look. And if you don't like what you see in the mirror, don't get mad at me for holding the mirror up. Get mad at yourself for the image that comes back to you. All right, so, it's a reminder. We all can use a reminder about salah. We all slack off late on this salah, late on that salah, and that stuff catches up. It wears your iman down. It wears your faith down until you become comfortable with that. And shaitan working on you. Every day. He doesn't want you to pray at all. So you miss a salat here, miss a salat there, late for salat here, late for salat there, and not attending Jumu'ah here, not attending Jumu'ah there, and the whole while your heart is getting blacker and blacker and blacker. And you don't realize shaitan's working on you. And, sometimes we have to, ask Allah for forgiveness, ask Allah to make us, from amongst those who establish salah, ask Allah for His help. Don't keep saying, well, my iman is in my heart, well, I'm weak right now, make dua for me. Allow Allah, make dua for yourself. What do you mean, make dua for you? So you're just going to remain content with the condition that you were in? No. No. Make dua for yourself and change your condition. Allah will not change the condition of a people until I first. They change what is within themselves. That starts with you. Don't tell a person, oh, make dua for me, brother. No, you make dua for yourself. The most powerful dua that you can make is the dua that you make for yourself. I might not be as sincere as you are when I make dua for you. How you tell somebody else, make dua for me? I might say, oh Allah, forgive him. And I don't really mean it. But when you say, oh Allah, forgive me, has a whole totally different meaning to it. Has a completely different meaning to it. Okay? وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. I don't know if you guys have any questions, comments. Can we open the door? Let some fresh air in here.
When you put Allah secondary, is that a form of shirk?
Nah, I wouldn't go as far as saying it's a form of shirk. I wouldn't go that far. I would just say it's just a miscalculation. I don't think that a person is doing it intentionally to put Allah second for us to say that that's a form of shirk. I wouldn't go that far. That's kind of a stretch. I would like to think it's just a miscalculation. The person is not aware that they're doing this. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's got two quick ones. You started off with asking about the rights, right? So one of the rights of Allah is upon us is our prayers, right? Us praying to Him.
Well, the right of Allah upon us is that we serve Him, and prayer is just a method of
serving Him. And then you also talked about a hypothetical with the kid about, I don't feel like praying, but you have to pray. And then he also said a hadith about person 3 times being told. So if the khushu is not there at that specific moment, but you just pray because you know it's required, how does that give into the invalidity that you kind of mentioned in passing about it also?
He said, for example, if a person prays and maybe the khushu' is not there at that moment, is the salat valid? Does it even matter? The Prophet ﷺ said that the person will be rewarded for his salat based upon the degree of his awareness in his salat. He said, رُبَّمَا يَنْصَرِفُ الرَّجُلُ مِنْ صَلَاتِهِ وَلَا يُكْتَبْ مِنْ أَجْرِهِ إِلَّا نِصْفُهَا أَوْ ثُلُثُهَا أَوْ خُمُسُهَا أَوْ سُدُسُهَا أَوْ سُبُعُهَا أَوْ ثُمُنُهَا أَوْ تِسْعُهَا أَوْ عُشْرُهَا. He said, perhaps a person may leave out of his salat, and the only thing he has written for him as a reward is a third of it, or a fourth of it, or a fifth of it, or a sixth of it, or seventh of it, eighth of it, ninth of it, or 10th of it. And if we combine those two hadith, that he will be rewarded for his salat based upon the degree of his awareness of Allah in the salat, and then how he broke the salat up into the different percentages of the reward. So it's perhaps if you didn't have any khushu', maybe you won't get anything as a reward. And perhaps if you were in and out of awareness during your salah, then you will be rewarded a third, a fourth, fifth, sixth, depending on how much you are aware of Allah in your prayer. So it's really hard to say finitely exactly what you're going to be rewarded, because you don't really know, and no one else knows to what degree you are aware of Allah in your prayer. So it's just a reminder to us all to just, every salat has to count. It's like when you're playing basketball. All right, and you shooting, whether from the foul line, whether from the three-point line, wherever you shoot, you're trying to make the shot count. Every salah is like when you get fouled and you come to the foul line and you shoot, right? Because you're trying to make both of those baskets, because every shot counts, because you're trying to win. Every salah counts because you're trying to win. Every salah counts because you're trying to win. We're trying to get to Jannah. Jannah comes with a price. The Prophet ﷺ said that the merchandise of Allah is ghali, is expensive. And indeed, the merchandise of Allah is Jannah. That's not going to come free. You're not going to get that for free. There's people like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu who on his deathbed said, Ya laytani rak'atayn maqbulatayn. I wish I knew that I had 2 rak'ah. Throughout my entire life as a Muslim, I wish I knew for a certainty I had 2 rak'ah that Allah accepted from me. I could relax. This is Abu Bakr. Umar radiallahu anhu on his deathbed. He's worried. The Sahaba can see signs of worry on his face. They're reminding him that, oh, you were companion of the Prophet ﷺ. Every time we saw, we see the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr and Umar, the Prophet Abu Bakr and Umar. And Umar radiallahu anhu, he didn't say anything more than raghiban wa rahiban. I'm between fear and hope, man. Even at this very moment on my deathbed, between fear and hope. We live our entire lives between fear and hope. Nothing is guaranteed to anybody. Even the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'een, with all that they had given for Islam. He said that if you were to spend the entire mountain of Uhud in gold and sadaqah, you would not have given a handful of what the Sahaba gave, not even half. And these same individuals were afraid that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't even accept 2 rak'ah from them. So who are we to think, because I prayed for rak'ah Isha, Allah is going to accept that?
And sorry, you said there were 3 who spoke. Who was the third one you were talking about?
The first one was the child in the story of Jurayj. The second one was Isa bin Maryam. And the third one was the other part of the hadith where the young child, when somebody walked past, the lady was breastfeeding the child, the guy walked past who was wealthy, and the mother said, may Allah make my son like that. And the child took his face off of the breast and said, may Allah not make me like that. And then a poor person walked by, and the woman said, may Allah protect my child from being like that. And the child took his face off of the breast and said, may Allah make me like that. Any other questions related to?
Sheikh, any tips for increasing the khushu or having the khushu in the salah?
Good question. He said, what are the tips for increasing khushu or awareness of Allah in your salah? Number 1 is in sincerity. Why are you praying? That alone is enough. We usually skip over that part. Sincerity. Why are you praying? Who are you praying to? That within itself should be enough, number 1, for the first start, for us to have khushu' in our salah. To be mindful of who you're praying to. Rabbul Alameen. People like Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu used to make wudu and urinate. Sufyan al-Thawri, Sufyan al-Thawri, the great scholar of hadith, he used to urinate blood when he would make wudu. Ali radiallahu anhu would make wudu and start shivering. And they would ask Ali, why are you shivering? He said, do you know who I'm getting ready to go stand in front of? I mean, they had an awareness before all of the rundown that scholars give that will help just, develop khushu', number one, just be aware of who you're praying in front of. This is the same one who drowned the Fir'aun, the same one who drowned the people of Noah, the same one who destroyed the Ad and Thamud, the same one who did all of these great things that we read about in the Quran. This is who you're making wudu and who you're about to go communicate with. That within itself should be enough for you to, have a heightened sense of awareness before you even start praying. And as you're making wudu, remind yourself who you're about to go pray to. Rabbul Alameen. The one who created Adam with one word, be, and it was. The one who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and he didn't actually need 6 days. He took 6 days to teach us a lesson that major matters of importance take time. Allah could have created the heavens and the earth and everything in it and that which is greater than it with one word, be, and it is. He created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, as the scholars of tafsir say, to teach us a lesson. Not because he needed 6 days. Allah says in the Quran that إِنَّمَا إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرٍ أَن يَقُولُ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونُ. That if Allah decides on a matter or wishes a matter, wills a matter, it's just simply for him to say kun fayakun, be, and it is. This is who we're about to pray in front of. Secondly, the scholars mention one of the ways to help build khushu' in your salat is to understand what you're saying. So if you memorize Al-Fatiha, you memorize short surahs from the Quran, one of the things to keep you focused in your salat is to understand what you're saying. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. What does that even mean? In English, in your language. It makes no sense to, just spew things in Arabic and you don't know what you're saying. Of course your mind is going to drift because you don't even know what you're saying. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Before you even get into the surah, understand when you say Allahu Akbar, what does that mean? When you say Sami Allahu liman hamida, what does that mean? Rabbana wa lakal hamd, what does that mean? Subhana Rabbiyal Azim, what does that mean? Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, what does that mean? These are all things that we say in our salat, small phrases that have so much meaning. Al-Fatiha, what does that mean in English? Learn Al-Fatiha in English. Go back and learn the tafsir of the surah, what it actually means. Not just what it means in English, what is the tafsir, what is the understanding of it? The short surahs, every time you learn a short surah from the Quran, go back and read the story behind that surah, the revelation of that surah. Is it Madaniyah? Is it Makkiyah? When was this surah revealed? In the Meccan period, Medina period? Where is this surah at in the Quran? What is the story behind the revelation of that surah? These surahs have stories behind them. Mumtahina. This is the story of the women who were being tested. Tahreem, when the Prophet ﷺ made something haram for himself, in the first ayat Allah admonished him, Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu lima tuharrimu ma ahallallahu lak tabtaghi mardata azwajik. Surah Tahreem, the Prophet ﷺ made a mistake and Allah corrected him, admonished him about that. What is the story behind that? All of these surahs, these ayats, they are so magnificent. And we would just take a moment to just go back and read what is the story behind this. Almost every surah, every ayat has a story behind it, why it was revealed. Scholars have even written books on this called Asbab al-Nuzul, reasons for revelation. Would have gone and they've done studies on every surah, every ayat that has a story behind it. What's the backstory of the surah? Surah Kafirun has a story behind it. Such a short surah, but it has an entire story behind it. Why it was revealed. Why did Allah give him that surah? And as you're reading the ayats while you're in the salah, you're focusing on everything you read about that surah, and it gives you, an opportunity a space where you can concentrate on the surah rather than concentrate on everything going on beyond you. You guys follow me? That makes sense. And of course, looking down at the place of sujood, keeping your eyes focused, fixated on the place where your head is going to touch the ground, not looking around while you're in the salah unnecessarily. Focusing, fixated on the place of your sujood. turning your cell phone off and putting it on silent so that it doesn't disturb you while you're making salah. The moment comes off of the salah and now you're looking at your cell phone. Being mindful to turn your cell phone off. I'm always amazed at a person who you establish a regular salah, and if everybody in your life knows that you pray, why would your phone be going off during the salah? And then sometimes multiple times. And then some people just allow their phone to ring continuously throughout the salah. If your phone rings, stick your hand in your pocket and just put your phone on silent. You don't have to pull it out and look and see who's calling you. That's not important. Stick your hand in your pocket and put your phone on silent. Making wudu properly and, getting to the masjid on time so that you have time to get out of your mind everything that you were thinking of prior to the salat, so that way you can focus. If you come to the salat, come to the masjid early, make wudu, pray your 2 rak'ah, sit down, read Quran, by the time the iqamah is called, your mind is already prepped for salat. But if you're watching TV, it's time for salat, you turn the TV off and you go make wudu and you stand for prayer, guess what shaitan is going to do? Everything that you were just watching. God forbid it was a game and you're worried about the score, you're worried about your team. The whole salat, you're tormenting yourself because you're worried about if the other team scored and what's the score now, and you can't even focus on your salat. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, she said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would enter into his home and he would engage us and he would laugh with us. She said, but when the adhan went off for salat, كَأَنَّهُ لَا يَعْرِفُنَا, it was as if he didn't even know who we were. We were complete strangers. Because when the adhan went off, nothing and no one was more important than salat. Nothing. She said when the adhan went off, it was as if he didn't even know who we were. Make wudu, I'll talk to you later, I'm going to pray. Nothing was more important to him than the salah. And then of course also praying in the masjid. I know some of us don't have the luxury to do that for every single salah, but you got to break the monotony sometime. If you're praying in your house constantly, you become accustomed to that. And you are missing out on the energy that is in the masjid. Any place that you walk into has energy. Any place that you walk into, if you are in tune with that, any environment that you walk into, you're walking. Human beings, we're actually energy. We give off energy. You can feel when you're standing next to someone, they make you uncomfortable. The person is giving off a vibe. They're functioning at a frequency that is making you uncomfortable. We give off vibes. The masjid gives off a vibe, a certain frequency, which is why when you come to the masjid for Fajr or any other salah, when you leave out, your spirit is high. You feel good because you've walked into an environment where the energy is just, it's vibrating, it's pulsating with positive energy. And you need that. I tell my kids, like my 4th graders, I walk into the classroom, and I always tell them to, give me the salams very loud. They say, wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very loud. I mean, like literally you can feel the walls vibrating, they're so loud. And I tell them that I want them to do that because I'm feeding off their energy. You just gave me all of your energy, right? The Prophet ﷺ was sitting with Abu Bakr one time, and a guy came and he insulted Abu Bakr. And Abu Bakr's, sitting there tolerating the guy's insults, and the Prophet is smiling, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, admiring Abu Bakr's tolerance. And then Abu Bakr, he reached a breaking point where he couldn't take it anymore, and he responded back to the individual. So they're sitting there arguing. The Prophet gets up and walks away. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu follows the Prophet and said, why is it when the guy was insulting me, you sat there and you didn't say anything? But the moment I responded back to him, you got up and you walked away. He said, because when you sat there and you were tolerating what the guy was saying to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent angels down immediately and they were defending you. He said, but the moment you responded back, the angels left and the shayateen came, and I got up and walked away because I don't sit with shaitan. You see, the negative energy. The moment you start arguing and fighting, you are attracting the jinn, the negative jinn, just like blood attracts sharks.
That's right.
Negative energy. Keep it away from you. Negative vibes, negative energy, keep it away from you. you find yourself in an environment where it makes you uncomfortable, it's causing your spirit, trouble, remove yourself from that environment. That is your body talking to you. And you can either listen to your body in this life, or you can listen to your body in the next life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَوْمَ نَخْتِمُ عَلَىٰ أَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَتُكَلِّمُنَا أَيْدِيهِمْ وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. On the day when we will seal your mouths shut, and your hands will talk, your feet will testify against all of the things that you used to do. You can either respond to your body now, or you can respond to your body later. Your body talks to you in this life, just as your body will talk to you in the hereafter. Or talk about you in the hereafter. Your hands will testify against you, your feet will testify against you, all of your limbs will speak. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do that in the hereafter, why can't we understand that your body does the same thing in this life? When you're hungry, doesn't your stomach growl? That's your stomach talking to you. When you've done something wrong and you feel shame, you feel guilt, you feel those feelings in your heart is heavy. It's your heart talking to you. Then the Prophet ﷺ guy came to him and said, the Prophet ﷺ said, before the guy opened his mouth, he said, "Jibta li tas'al an al-birr." You came to ask me about righteousness, didn't you? He said, "Istafti qalbak." Have a conversation with your heart. You don't need to ask me if this is halal and haram. People come with these questions. Brother Imam, is this halal, is haram? Ask your heart. Do you feel comfortable after you do that? Because we're looking for sometimes a fatwa. We're looking for halal or haram to make us feel better about doing it. All the while ignoring all of the signs that your body is giving off that is telling you that this is not right. But we get a fatwa from a scholar, fatwa from a student of knowledge that says, well, he said it's okay, but you're still ignoring what your heart is telling you. You understand? The Prophet ﷺ says, "Stafti qalbak." Consult with your heart. Because your heart talks to you. Consult with your heart. He said, righteousness is that which you feel comfortable about, comfortable with. Mutma'inna nafs, tatma'innu ilayhi nafs. Your soul feels good about it. He said, in sin, mahakaf nafs, sin is what wavers in the chest. It makes you uncomfortable. وَكَرِهْتَ أَنْ يَطَّلِعَ عَلَيْهِ النَّاسِ. And you hate people finding out about it. You're embarrassed. If you're embarrassed about it, that means it's wrong. That's a person whose moral compass is still intact. So when people talk about homosexuality, right? They say, oh, he's coming out. If you got to come out, then that means it's wrong from the door. We don't even have to have a conversation about it. Because if it was normal, there would be no need for you to come out. You guys follow me?
Yep.
You got to come out. He's ready to come out. She's ready to come out. If you got to come out, then that means that you had to reconcile that within yourself first. And anything that you need to reconcile within yourself first means that it's wrong, morally. It's wrong. We don't even have to have a conversation about it. Whether you're born like that, not born like that, if you were born like that, there will be no need for you to come out. You need time in your life to reconcile within yourself that that is what you want to do, and you're hoping that people are welcoming and accepting towards it, and then finally you muster up the courage to come out. So miss me with all of that. I was born this way and this is, genetically. I'm sorry. Our religion teaches us something totally different. If it was natural, there would be no need for you to come out because it would be natural.
That's right.
It would be natural. And something that is unnatural will always make you feel uncomfortable. When it's unnatural, which is why when you lie, right, they take a lie detector test, and when you lie, it goes up, you get a spike, right? Why do you get a spike? Because lying is unnatural. You have to try to make up a lie. Telling the truth comes natural, which is why children don't know how to lie until we teach them. Children tell on themselves. Children tell you what happened because they don't know how, they haven't learned the behavior of lying. We're naturally created as human beings, aligned with our natural disposition as human beings, is aligned with the predisposition that Allah created us with. and all of those qualities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, He put some of those into the human being. Mercy, compassion, a desire for truth.
That's the truth.
All of those things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with. It just takes us to actualize that as we get older and realize that those things are important and those things become factors in our lives. They become a part of our moral compass. I'm boring you guys, we can stop here. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
You just said it has to be natural, right?
Mhm.
So, like, if we have certain habits and we feel that they have to, like, come in from inside and we don't have to work on them as a matter of choice, but has to come from within. So, how is that justified?
So you're basically asking the difference between the choice to do something and being forced by the religion to do something.
Exactly.
Okay, so
And I feel that there is going to be a right time and it's going to come inside out of me, and then I'm going to do it as compared to this is the other thing that I need.
okay, so let's use the hijab. It's an awesome example, right? So the hijab is an obligation. Islam says the hijab is an obligation. However, there are some women who choose not to wear the hijab. So does the religion, should she be forced to wear it, or should we give her space wherein she can learn to wear it out of her own choice? Am I understanding you correctly now?
Exactly, because most of the times the argument is that when I'm ready for it, and when it's going to come out from me, then I'm going to do it.
I got you.
Because I don't want, yeah.
I totally understand you now. Okay, great. So, the commandment of Allah is the commandment of Allah. It does not change. Whether we are ready to adhere to that or not, that's a whole other conversation. But the instruction of Allah does not change. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells women to wear hijab. Allah says, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّبِيُّ قُلْ لِأَزْوَاجِكَ وَبَنَاتِكَ وَنِسَاءِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنْ يُدْنِينَ عَلَيْهِنَّ مِنْ جَلَابِيبِهِنَّ. O Prophet, tell your wives, your daughters, and the rest of the believing women to draw their veils over themselves. Jilbab. So no woman should say there's no mention of abaya in the Quran. It is. Jilbab, jalabib is the plural of jilbab. So it is mentioned in the Quran. Alright, now that's the commandment. That is an obligation on the woman from as early as she reaches the age of puberty. Alright? Now, at the age of puberty, maybe the girl is not ready to wear hijab. She understands that that is the commandment of Allah. I know that I am supposed to. However, me as an individual, I am not there in that space yet where I am ready to wear that. Alright? Okay, does Islam give her, is she sinful during that period of time that she's not wearing it? Perhaps. Perhaps she is. However, when she does decide to wear it, she's going to do it when she's ready, and it will be done out of sincerity. Rather than her parents commanding her to do it and her hating it because she has to wear it, because the parents tell her to wear it, and now she might, even the parents actually might be sinful for forcing her to do something out of, hatred. This is not the way that Islamic rulings are imposed on people. They're not. Alright, for example, the hijab was not revealed until the 5th year after Hijrah. That means that there were 13 years in Mecca, 5 years in Medina, a total of 18 years before Muslim women had to wear the hijab. Before it was an obligation for them to wear the hijab. So why is it that the early generation of Muslim women were given some type of leadway to work themselves into wearing the hijab? Not just with the hijab, alcohol. Alcohol was not prohibited until the same exact year where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the final ayah making alcohol haram. 18 years. Why are they given a grace period, the early generation of Islam, given this grace period to kind of work themselves into it? And Aisha said if the first thing that Allah had revealed from the Quran had been leave off fornication and adultery, the people would have said we will never leave it off. Because Islam gives them a grace period. It's not for me to say whether a person is sinful or not sinful. If my daughter, Allah forbid, at 11, 12, 13 years old decides that she does not want to wear the hijab, I'm not going to force her to do it. I will simply explain to her, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ وَعَلَيْنَا